Hey guys, it's Jeff from Everything Plants. Welcome back to another video, and if you're new here, please consider subscribing for more houseplant content. Today I want to talk about my Philodendron Golden Goddess, how I care for it, how to propagate it, and I guess some issues that I've had while propagating this plant as well. I haven't talked about this plant for about 9 months, so this will be a little bit of an update video as well, so let's get into it. So like I said, I haven't made a video about this plant in a few months, and I just wanted to show you how it's looking now, as when I bought it, it was looking pretty rough. This is one of Costa Farms' trending tropical plants. It was at one of my local big box stores for, I think it was like $25 or something like that. And probably like most of you, when you catch wind or word that these plants are in stock, you get there and there's like 2 or 3 left, and they are obviously the ones that are a little bit roughed up. And that was the case with this one. There was a few that some of the leaves were just not looking good. I'll see if I can find a couple, like these ones here. They have some blemishes on it, and they just weren't looking that well. So I brought it home. I made a video about repotting it and just making it look a little bit better. So if you want to go see that video, I'll leave it up in the top corner here. You can go check that one out. But yeah, right now it's doing super well. So I'm gonna kind of run through some of the things that I've done with it just for basic care. And I've actually chopped this plant up a couple times, and I'll explain that in the propagation portion. So yeah, it's looking really healthy. Looking really good. This is honestly one of my more easier to care for plants. So if you do get a chance to pick one up, highly recommend it. It's a very good beginner type plant. It really doesn't, I guess, need much. So I'm gonna start off with light. So I actually have this one on the floor near my south-facing window. It's about 2 feet back. Whenever I bring a houseplant home, I always like to research how it grows in its natural habitat. And these vining or climbing philodendrons, what they typically do is they'll grow kind of on the forest floor. They'll get ample sunlight throughout the day, and they will basically adhere to a tree and kind of climb up with their aerial roots, searching out for more light. And as they grow, their leaves get bigger. So yeah, that's basically how I replicate this one. It's just on my floor, and it gets kind of maybe some direct sunlight throughout the day, but nothing strong enough to, I guess, give it any leaf burns. So it's pretty easy to just give it a bright sunny spot. If you don't have like a south window, maybe pull it back from a west window or place it near an east window, and I think you should do okay. Plants with variegation on them, they tend to need a little bit more, I guess, higher light locations compared to like just a dark green leafed plant. Right now, it's got beautiful color on it. It's got the very, almost like a yellowy lime green coloration to it right now, and it does have some variegation in a few areas. But yeah, it's doing really well in that location, and yeah, I think I'll leave it there and just let it continue to grow. I placed most of my tropical houseplants in a well-draining, kind of chunky soil. You can see there's lots of large chunks of orchid bark. So basically what that consists of is I use ProMix's tropical plant soil, and then I'll add in some extra orchid bark, and in that bag it also contains some charcoal and perlite, so it just makes for a nice, airy, chunky, well-draining soil. Something that doesn't hold on to moisture too long, as these philodendrons don't like to sit in kind of soggy soil for too long. I will give it a good thorough watering, soak the soil, but I'll let it dry out in between watering. So this is currently what I use for, like I said, most of my houseplants, and all my plants seem to like it. So I'll show you how to water it here in a second, but I'm actually going to take this plant outside here. I'm going to spray off the leaves as they're quite dusty and dirty. I haven't cleaned them off for a while now. This is in, like I said, a really well-draining soil, so it should come out fairly quick. But I'm going to, I guess, water it a couple times, make sure all the soil is completely saturated. And this pot does have drain holes. I'm just gonna let it drain out. You see how quick that goes down? And it's already coming out the bottom. So that is what I wanna see with a well-draining soil. I like that consistency. And I'm going to soak it a few more times, just make sure all this soil has some water, and make sure that the roots get enough water. If it's in a well-draining soil like this, chances are you're not going to overwater it, because it obviously drains out the majority of the water. Oh, it's coming out, some roots coming out the bottom. So yeah, it's going to drain the excess water out. It's not going to sit there and kind of soak and saturate the soil, leading to root rot. So that's why I like using the orchid bark, lots of perlite, and some soil. I did fertilize this, I think about a week ago, and I'll show you here in a second. I don't have it with me, but I just use a really mild houseplant fertilizer. It's a liquid fertilizer. I just squirt it in the can here. I think it's a Miracle-Gro. The NPK values are 111. I do have a fertilizer video if you want to go check that out. I'll leave it up in the corner here as well. But yeah, just make sure you give it a good thorough watering, let it dry out in between the waterings. But overall, like, if I miss or if I let it get too dry for too long, it doesn't really give you like any crispy edges. This is one of those damaged ones, but overall these leaves look really healthy. It might get a little bit wilty, but overall, like, it doesn't give you any brown crispy edges like you'd see on, say, like a Diefenbach or something like that. So here's the fertilizer that I'm currently using for most of my houseplants. This is the Miracle-Gro's Indoor Plant Food. It's a balanced, very mild 111. It's nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Basically just follow the directions on the back. It is 4 little pumps or squirts in a 1 liter container, and I just water it like I did outside. Just basically completely saturate the soil, let it drain out, and you're good to go. From humidity, I just have it upstairs in my living room. It gets just regular house humidity. I don't have it near a humidifier or anything like that, so I generally like to keep it around that 40 to 50. In the wintertime here in Canada, it does get pretty dry, so our indoor humidity might drop to around that 30%, so I'll add a humidifier in the wintertime. But for the most part, it doesn't need like really high humidity. Downstairs here it is 64 right now, but yeah, it does well with just regular house humidity. Okay, now for propagation, and like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I did have some difficulty with propagating this plant, and I'm not too sure exactly why. I think I may have taken too large of a cutting, but anyways, philodendrons in general are super easy to propagate. I did propagate the cuttings in water, and what happened is, I don't know if I have a picture of it or not, but what happened is the end or the bottom of the cutting would rot fairly quickly, and I would cut it back, let it callus over for a day or two, stick it back in water, and it would rot again. So I'm not too sure if this is just an issue with this one in particular, because like I said, philodendrons in general are very easy to propagate basically by any method: water, perlite, sphagnum. I'm not going to propagate this one today, but I'll show you how to do it. There just really isn't anywhere that I'm going to, you know what, actually I'm going to do it. Basically what you want to look for are these little leaf lines, like right here. You'll see a leaf come out the side of it. There'll be some little bumps like this. Those will be aerial roots. Let's see if I can get in there a little bit closer. You can see right here, this is where I propagated previously. So you want to cut in between 2 of these leaf lines so that new growth will pop out from the closest leaf line or leaf node. So this is one, I guess, area in particular, and I'm going to snip the top off this one. I'm just going to grab some clean sterile pruning shears here. So you can do it as like one long stem. So like this one right here, this stem right here, you can propagate that entire thing. But like I said, I think what happened is that I took too large of a cutting, and basically it rotted back fairly quick. So you can take a stem cutting, but you can also take individual leaf cuttings. And that's what I'm gonna do for this one, just for this video. You can see there's a new little sprout coming out of there. So I'm going to cut in between 2 leaf nodes like this without damaging the leaf behind it, and just cut it like that. See if I can grab this cutting. And you end up with a portion of stem like this. It does have a leaf, and I'm going to be actually propagating this in perlite. I did not have any success with water, so I'm gonna be sticking this in perlite, and I'll show you my propagation box here in a second. But yeah, I'm going to be rooting this in perlite, and those little black dots right there, that's where all the new roots are gonna sprout from, and it will continue, it will continue to push out a new vine from this little nub right there. Here is another section of the stem where I've propagated previously. You can see I cut the top off there, and this one actually got 2 branches. So it got a branch from that node, and it got another branch from this node, and it actually looks like it's getting 1 more branch down there. So when you propagate a plant and you snip the top off, basically it tells the plant it can no longer grow upwards, so it focuses growth more on the lateral sides, so it branches out. So this is actually quite neat to see on a climbing philodendron like this. So this is kind of what to expect. If you have one stem like this, you can cut it back and it should branch out in multiple areas. And like I said, it's starting a new growth back there. And the one that I just cut, it should push out at least one or maybe more branches from that stem as well, just adding to a more fuller, thicker plant. So pruning plants is good. Don't be scared of it. It's not going to hurt the plant. The only thing you might have issues with are the cuttings and propagation. They don't always succeed. So if you lose the cutting, not a big deal. You can always try again with a different method, like I'm going to do placing in perlite. So here are two methods of perlite propagation that I currently use. The bag method, just in a Ziploc bag, and in a perlite propagation box that's got a lid, which I keep on most of the time. I'll let it air out for maybe an hour every couple days. So this is actually a Philodendron silver sword that I did a plant trade with about 2 weeks ago, and it's been in this perlite propagation bag. I've maybe opened it twice, and look at these roots. So this is what to expect. This is a very similar climbing or vining type plant as the golden goddess. So this is a good example of what to expect when I guess propagating it in perlite. It gets these nice, thick, healthy roots. So this is almost ready to be potted up in some soil. The thing that I like about perlite is when you transition it to soil, it typically has a higher success rate than if you have like a water propagated plant and put it in soil. It's just a little bit more difficult for the plant to, I guess, get oxygen, as the soil is a little bit more well, it is more dense than water. So water roots are typically smaller, thinner. It has a harder time transitioning to soil. You basically have to keep the soil wet for the first 2 weeks and then just slowly cut back on the watering to like a regular watering routine. But with perlite, I find you don't have to do that. I have a Scindapsus jade satin that I propagated in perlite, basically stuck it in soil, and I just water it as I normally would. Like, I don't have to keep soaking the soil for those 2 weeks and then just slowly cutting back. I can just pot this up in some soil and it's pretty much ready to go. So that's why I like perlite when it comes to transitioning into soil. But this method, it almost has a 100% success rate for basically every cutting that I've taken so far. So for this Philodendron golden goddess, I'm going to be using my perlite propagation box, and it's simply just finding a spot, sticking it in the soil like that. You can see those little aerial roots. Those will search out into the perlite, searching out for the moisture. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm going to just cover it back up. I do have it in a sunny area. That's one thing that you have to make sure that you have enough light for these propagations to, I guess, start the roots. So put it in a nice sunny location. Yeah, I'll probably be doing a perlite propagation care video, or propagation box, how I care for it, down the road here. So I do have a couple propagation box videos out there, so if you want to go check those out, you can do that as well. But that's pretty much it. Really easy to propagate, except for I had some difficulty in water. So I would suggest perlite. I know this will root in a week or two, so I'll provide some updates with that. So I think that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you found it useful. Let me know what you thought of it down in the comment section. Also, if you have some other care tips that you want to pass along, not only to myself, but to the rest of the viewers, feel free to do so as well. Just leave a comment down below. But always appreciate the ongoing support. Thanks. Take care, everyone.